So, good afternoon, everybody. Oh, we can do better than that. Good afternoon, everybody. So, one of the things that I want you to know about me before we begin this conversation is that I unapologetically love black people, right? And I want us to understand that this conversation is going to be an honest dialogue, but it is not necessarily rooted in contentions, simply because I want it to be known that when we take a look at history, because I do teach history at Broward College, one of the things that was crucial in order to indoctrinate this land with the ideology of white supremacy is to cause a division between black men and black women. It's important for us to know that the division, if there is one that exists, and we'll get to that momentarily, is not of our own doing as the people. And so we don't want to exhibit that contention. What we do want to happen is to have growth, a conversation that is honest, but also that will lead to progression for the black community as a whole. Can we all agree to that? Yes. Awesome. And so the way this is going to work is I have a series of questions for these esteemed gentlemen. And then of course, time will be allotted to allow the audience to also ask questions. So make sure you have some questions as well. And so this conversation is going to flow seamlessly, and I can't wait to start. And so with that being said, without prolonging it, gentlemen, my first question to you all is that to be a black man is truly a unique reality. Yes, there are men of different racial spectrums, but the black male experience is a really unique experience. Can you all just talk to the audience about what is the black male experience and what makes it so unique?
Good afternoon. Okay, from my perspective, as I say, I'm the president of the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce. For 15 years, I worked for the Miami Dolphins organization running the stadium. And I say one thing about we as black men, we have the ability to be chameleons. I was able, prior to working for the stadium and the Dolphins, I worked in Coconut Grove for a nonprofit building affordable housing. And across the street from me was the crack house. So the ability to engage with those folks who lived across the street, the ability to go into a boardroom and sit with Wayne Hadzinger, a lot of people don't have that ability to move through those two worlds. And I say as black men, we have the ability to assimilate and move through many different scenarios in life. We're not stuck or pigeonholed when it comes to that.
I come from kind of a similar background. I'm from Camden, New Jersey originally, grew up in the inner city there. And I guess Eric put it very well, being a black man, being a chameleon, and having to deal with, especially in corporate America, a situation where you are sometimes really not wanted to be there or not welcomed as much as you would like to be. But then being in a situation where sometimes you have to come home and go back to where you're from and relate to the people in the neighborhood and in your family who don't understand what you deal with every day. When you leave home, you go into somewhat of, for lack of a better term, a war zone. And you are tested every day. And when you come home, what you're looking for is that sanctuary, that peace, that area where you can recharge your battery, rejuvenate yourself for the next day. And sometimes that is the most important thing for a black man to deal with, is finding that time and that space that allows them to recharge their battery and recover.
You know, I think that one of the things I want to say up front is that I don't think that probably the male-female experience is dramatically different. I think that we as people of color have a commonality of experience. There is a difference between men and women, as we know, Venus, Mars, we know the whole story there, but we're a lot more alike than we are different. And I think that one of the things I want to try to put a context on is that as African Americans, we have a history and a legacy that's pretty unique, where we came into this country, we were dehumanized, we were degraded, and our beings were were being perverted into oppression that has really had a major impact on us as a people and how we relate to each other from a relationship standpoint, interpersonally, our families, and our communities. And simply put, what we have gone through, the fact that we're still standing and able to try to work together is amazing in itself. And so I want to, if I can, say that our experience as men has some unique characteristics to it, from the slavery perspective, where we had to watch our women being abused and dehumanized and couldn't do a thing about it. We had to watch our children being beat and sold and couldn't do a thing about it. But our women had to stand next to us while that was being done and couldn't do anything about it, and also watch their man see his manhood seeping away from him as that was not happening. Even to the point that our sisters had to sometimes take massa in order to keep her husband from being killed or being sold away. So my point is, we've had some experiences in this country that are unique as African Americans that still manifest themselves today in the way that we relate to each other. There was a breakdown in trust. There was a breakdown in how we saw each other, a creation of self-hate that we're still trying to overcome. So hopefully we'll be able to address maybe one or two of those things here today and find a bridge that brings us closer together.
Anyone? Go ahead.
Just one quick point to add to that. When I received this first question, the first word that came to mind as well was chameleon. In so many different settings, me, myself personally, as a young black man, you're always dealing with who am I, trying to figure that out, and the person that you think you are or want to be isn't accepted in this climate or in that climate. So you're always trying to meet others' expectations, whether it's friends, whether it's in school, teachers. People think that they know you when they really don't at all. And you're always trying to find yourself. And that's why later on, when you get into your 20s, 30s, you're finally confident and comfortable with, hey, this is who I am, and if you don't like it, then you can take a walk. And that causes a lot of friction with young black men that I've noticed in my experiences, because really this comes from insecurity, not knowing who you are, and being honest with each other, being deeply honest with your friends, and having that comfort that, I accept you, and looking for that acceptance. So I definitely look forward to talking more about that.
Our experience, I see us as the masters of innovation in spite of degradation. I see us as, the princes of potential, kings of camouflage, but of course for good reason. Thing is, of course, us carving out a space where we can take that armor off, because of course if you have so much success with it outside, if it feels comfortable already and you're already in the house, let's keep it on. It is what it is until you get to the point where you can't even recognize yourself in the mirror. So I would say it's an incredible balancing act. We are creative beyond the sake of art. It's for survival. And so it's exciting, it's terrifying, it's all of the above as far as our losses, our wins. But I don't think I could be anything else as far as being able to fully enjoy life as far as to the richness of, you know, the wins and losses. I mean, you know, you see other people doing different things. Oh, you know, they're the president of this, they're the president of that. Ooh, when Obama was the president, when he won, oh my gosh. I don't know how many times I ran up and down my street. I didn't worry about the cops catching me. I mean, I was that excited. And it was, people would look at me, we had white neighbors then. Like, okay, really, is it all that? I'm like, you don't understand. You have no idea. And watching him was a perfect example of seeing us at our height. There was a scene in Blackish where they were talking about how when he and Michelle got out during the parade and he was waiting, and it was about 6 seconds where I thought he stayed out in open view for too long. And like every pore in me tightened up, get in, please get back in the car for something, please get back in the car for something happens. And I looked, because I was in a club, and everybody in the club was doing the same thing. That's some serious stuff right there. That's some serious stuff. That's all I gotta say.
Mic check, okay, make sure. The black man experience being unique, in my opinion. All of these gentlemen have said things that I definitely can relate to. It really made me think about the chameleon aspect and just asking yourself, who am I? Who am I supposed to be? Because depending on your environment, that can always change. You know, I'm from Miami, born and raised in Dade County. When you grow up in Carroll City, you're who you need to be to survive and get what you need. And you go to college, you figure out who you need to be there so you can graduate, stay out of trouble as much as you can. Then you go work for corporate America. You got to change up again because depending on what you want out of life, you want a promotion. Then you go back to school, you realize you got to be somebody else. It's that constant, it is constant every day. I really just had a moment to sit here and think while you all were speaking, like every day, I got to figure out who I got to be to make it happen. To first and foremost survive, and then produce and progress. Again, depending on what you want out of life. So the black man unique experience is definitely just that, you know, being a chameleon and making sure you can do everything you have to do to survive and produce in every day of your life.
I think also being a black man is to know that your body in this country is not valued. And if your body is not valued, your mind is not valued. So to be a black man is to know that those who are supposed to protect you can kill you on video and not receive any ramifications or consequences. And that's historical. So it was mentioned earlier, right? There's this historical emasculation of black men witnessing a woman being raped, of black men also being raped, if you know anything about buck breaking, right? It also speaks about black men being lynched and being castrated and segregation and massive unemployment and mass incarceration. And the list can go on, right? To be a black man is a burden. So my next question for our panel is, all the emasculation that black men have gone through, not only in private but in public, how does that impact how black men interact with black women? If you all could speak to that, please.
All right, fools rush in where wise men do not, right? Yeah, well, I think it has impacted us quite a bit. One example is that I'm going to make some generalizations. Generalizations, okay? Not absolutes, doesn't fit everybody. So it goes for the rest of the evening. Right. Typically, men in our relationships with women, starting when they're boys, having relationships with girls, are transactional from our perspective. It's usually about an objective at that point in time. Typically, with girls who become women, those engagements are looked at more long-term and how they reflect the value that they bring to the relationship. The guy is thinking more about the benefit that he is trying to get out of the relationship early on. And so the emasculation that has come from us historically has impacted us in a way that I think that sisters have an intuitive feel to try to get us to think beyond the transaction and to be more holistic and long-term in looking at things. We, having been emasculated and not appreciated sometimes the fact that through that emasculation that we have not fulfilled our full role in society because of the strength of the constraints that were put on us, we fight that. And so I think there is a constant battle between boys and girls and men and women that not just come from the standpoint of what would be normal between the sexes, but also because of the historical perspective of men wanting to be a man and feeling sometimes that someone put the woman in control of them to keep them from being a man, but it really wasn't the real deal. The real deal is that the woman did it in order to keep you from being killed. But that gets lost in the annals of time. And today, we don't know sometimes just even some of the dynamics that we're dealing with in terms of our relations and how they came to be.
Well, Hutch, you said something there, and I'm going to go a little in a different direction. And a lot of our households children are being raised, or young men or boys are being raised only by women. And when you think about that emasculation, some of our mothers are emasculating us by not giving us the proper tools to become the men that we need to become. An example, we were talking in the back, my sister, I used to get mad at my sister when she didn't make her son wash the dishes. Well, you know, that's something that women do. No, that's a lesson that you need to learn, how to take care of yourself. So if you're not learning that lesson, you're dependent on a woman to do it for you all the time. So we have been emasculated as young boys, if you were in that situation.
This will come up throughout the talk. It's about balance. I think as far as, gosh, I have a middle schooler, he's in 6th grade right now, and he's like, Dad, there's this girl, like, yeah, you like the girl every week, what's your point? I want to hold her hand, but the school says that that's harassment, and that's this, and that's that. And you know, when we went to the fair, you saw that little ring. I wanted to give it a ring, but they said that's against school policy. And I'm sitting there thinking, all of the basic little social things that I learned as a kid are outlawed right now. So a boy can't even learn how to approach a girl in the smallest kind of way, right? So he'll come to me like, well, what do I do? And for the first time, I don't even know what to say. You know, you can live by the law and you ain't gonna get no damn about it. You know what I'm talking about? You know, or you better learn how to bend the rules and, you know, oh, look at that, somebody dropped a ring over there. It's right next to you. Again, this camouflage thing, boys today are dealing with so much as far as the changing shifts of how to address the opposite sex, not even imagining asking their mom, what do I do, so on and so forth. And women, they're going to have their own perspective, and my son is like, Dad, I'm going to start asking you because everything mom said, it don't work. It don't work. It sounds nice, but it just don't work. It don't work. Okay, well, what do you mean? And this is another thing where as we grow up, we recognize, okay, there's the rules and there's the law. obey the law but break the rules, move in and out. You have to move in and out in this society to get what you want. And this is the same thing with men, boys dealing with females now, because you can't get away. I don't even know if you want to call it get away, but you can't maneuver outright like you used to. And I'm fearing that because I'm thinking in about 10 years, women gonna go to the club and men are gonna send a waiver over before they can come and ask you to dance. And that's not gonna feel, women like to feel desired for guys going through all of this, you know, all this, oh God, what you just ask already? I ain't trying to lose my career, you know? What happens is, I see this as a professor, you have these educated girls that are sharp, got it all together, and they're around these scared, petrified boys in class, and they wind up with these thugs. And it's because the thugs don't give a damn about social protocol. Girl, hey, I like you. A month or two later, she come into school with a black eye, got shades on, can't see, you know, what do? So I know what I grew up in, but now things are definitely changing and everybody need to stay on deck with how things play out, because it's going to be real interesting in the next 5 years.
So, any other comments before we move on to the next question? Any other panelists like to say or add something to that question? Okay, one thing I will add is, I think it's fair to say that an insecure man is a dangerous species. We know that just by looking at the White House itself, right? Can I go there? Is that all right? You can tell this is a black audience, right? If I was like in South Carolina with white folk, I'd be like, we'll meet you afterwards, right? One of the things though, just because in the way that we interact, I think it's really important for us to understand that too often we respond to results and don't analyze process. And let me explain what I mean by that. There is often an interaction between black men and black women where black women are asking, why aren't you the man I'm expecting you to be? Or vice versa, right? And one of the things that should be stated is, because men are not often taught societally to have conversations, to deal with our emotions and our feelings, we can come into a relationship with all insecurities, and yet there's all these expectations that leads to contention. And so historically, not just the here and now, black men, our manhood has been strategically stripped away, and that's something to be considered, that there is a lot of insecurities that we have to deal with, that we do have to overcome, but it's a communal effort for us to overcome that. Dear Brother Eric mentioned a really good point, so I'm going to actually go to that question, and we'll go to some of the other questions a little bit later. But we talked about the absence of black fathers. Now, it should be stated too that there's a lot of reports that speak to the fact that black men are more present in the lives of their children than people would assume that we are. But nonetheless, we still know that there is an issue. That doesn't just impact black men, but it also impacts black women. Can you all speak to these two factors? One, why do you think there is such a strong presence of black fathers who are absent from the households? That's one. And then secondly, how does it impact black men and black women in their relationships when they didn't have a father growing up? Who would like to begin?
I'll speak first. Well, I don't have any children, but I do have a father. So what I'll speak to, the first question was, why don't we...
Why is there such a large absence of black fathers in the household?
Well, I mean, we really don't communicate. We make kids just because, when I say we, I'm speaking about us all. I definitely take ownership in everything that we do. I feel as though we're irresponsible as a culture, as a society right now. We're not really getting to know the people that we're being involved with. And especially coming from a South Florida perspective, this is more hooking up than actually getting to know people. Like, we hook up. So since we here, we're gonna keep it 100. We're gonna keep it 100. So I'm gonna share my experience. I'm gonna share my experience with my girlfriend here, specifically because she's not from here, and I love my women from here. I got 2 sisters, but we have a culture down here, and we don't really talk. So when we met, we would just talk, and we would just kind of see. I asked her, I was like, hey, I tried to go to her house. She was like, you can't come to my house. I'm like, well, that's normal here. Like, you got to plate of food? Like, what's up? You know? So she took it as a disrespect. And I'm thinking it's normal, but just imagine how that folds into. Because I've had previous girlfriends where that happens. If I had kids with either the women I was with before, I wouldn't be there. Because I wouldn't be there because of the disconnect. We weren't able to communicate on a level that I believe we should be able to communicate for us to last or to stay together. So I believe just the initial reaction between men and women in our culture is kind of doomed upon if you just simply don't communicate and really just state your intentions. And the second question being?
It was more so, okay, so if the father is not present, how does that impact the black male or black female who grew up in that household? How does that impact how they see relationships, how they interact in their relationships?
And that's a great question. It's a challenge, it's a struggle every day because parents can be there and not be there. So we're dealing with people that may or may not have fathers or father figures or mothers or mother figures in their lives. So you're trying to figure out, going back to the basis of what we talked about before, is who am I? And being honest, you got to be honest with yourself before you can be honest with the person that you're trying to get to know or that you're trying to be in a relationship with. It's a struggle. It's really bad because now you're dealing with your own struggles of whether your parents were there and how they were there in your life and what they were able to give you to bestow upon not just yourself but somebody else. But you're dealing with somebody else that also has to come to the realization that, hey, we have to accept these things together and we have to figure out how can we work on these, how can we fill these voids together? How can we possibly figure out my dad wasn't there for me like this or my mother wasn't there for me like this? How can we communicate and talk about these things where we can fill these voids together to move forward in a progressive manner?
I gotta get up in this. Anthony Hamilton, coming where I'm from, love that song. He says, one of the lyrics, I'm scared of having children because I'm scared of failing. What I take from that is, for a brother to be doing bad in his apartment by himself is cool. But when you have a child looking at you like, yeah, everything, what do you mean